But just for the sake of time, let's get into with leaders like these. Meaning when we have leaders like these, why do we need enemies? Right? So I published a couple of articles last week and the week before on Muslim Girl. On Muslim Girl website is called muslimgirl.com. And I've always, had this website on the radar because every now and then I see different people share articles from Muslim Girl. And so the reality is that they have really problematic, un-Islamic, anti-Islamic content. Okay, and if this screen share function worked, I would just show you screenshots, but I can just read them for you. So, for example, they had an article on, did Allah give Muslims a definition for unlawful sex? So this is an article from Muslim Girl about zina and how zina is not really defined in Islam, and we should just be fine with, there's nothing wrong with having premarital sex. That's one of their articles published. Another article, meet the founder of the Transgender Muslim Support Network. Okay, and it's an article where they interview a transgender woman, meaning this is a man who is dressed in hijab and claims to be a woman, claims to be bisexual. This is how the person identifies himself. And this is an interview with him, promoting his transgender Muslim network. Another headline from Muslim Girl, this Ramadan, I didn't shame myself for being queer. This Ramadan, I didn't shame myself for being queer. Because there's nothing shameful about that, apparently, according to Muslim Girl. Another article, practicing Islam in short shorts. Practicing Islam in short shorts, promoting that. Another article, here's what one Muslim girl has to say about casual sex. Another article, why are we hiding our periods during Ramadan? Why gay imams are better for Muslim women. This is one of their articles. So you can see just a lot of garbage, kufr, outright kufr, promoted on this site. Okay, many of the articles on the site actually promote Muslim women removing their hijab, right? Completely removing the hijab. That's one of the popular themes. Makeup in general. They're constantly promoting plastering yourself with makeup. It's because there are certain makeup companies that are invested in Muslim Girl that are actually paying Muslim Girl for advertising. And so they have so many articles promoting makeup to Muslim girls. Okay. They had a scholarship. Muslim Girl was putting out a scholarship for lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, or queer Muslims. They called it the Rainbow Crescent Scholarship. Okay, so this is all the kind of garbage that Muslim Girl is putting out. There's no problem in the sense that Muslims, there are many outlets that are putting out garbage all the time. There are many blogs, there are many websites, there are many media outlets that are putting out this kind of garbage constantly. The problem is that what happens when certain Muslim figures start promoting this content? What happens when certain Muslim personalities and community leaders start promoting this website and this brand? Then it becomes a problem. Then it becomes a major problem. Because if you're a community figure and people are looking up to you as a leader and you're promoting this website, then you're giving it a stamp of approval. And insofar as they respect you as a religious figure, they're going to start thinking that what is on this site is acceptable in Islam, and they're going to start following it. They're going to start consuming it. They're going to start promoting it and spreading it and so forth. So this is what the article that I wrote on MuslimSkeptic.com is about. Is about Muslim Girl, the kinds of filth that it promotes, and then the Muslim figures who are promoting Muslim Girl. And the one figure that I focus on, because she is, the most blatant about it, is Dalia Mogahed. Dalia Mogahed. So, who is Dalia Mogahed, and why does she matter? That's a good question. She is the director of research at ISPU, the Institute of Social Policy and Understanding. So this is a Muslim institute that puts out different kinds of demographic research. They do different kinds of studies on the makeup of the Muslim community in America. The question of whether their research is reliable or not, I don't know. I haven't looked into that in depth yet. But there are some who have claimed that even their research is questionable and what they publish is questionable. They definitely have a huge left-wing bias in what they're pushing and publishing. And again, left-wing bias, it doesn't matter. What matters is that when that bias is contradicting certain aspects of Islam, that's what we care about, right? So I focused this article on Dalia Mogahed's connection to Muslim Girl. So if you go on the website, you'll see many examples of where Dalia Mogahed is promoting Muslim Girl and is saying that, wow, Muslim Girl is doing a great service. Muslim Girl is really pushing good ideas. In fact, I'll read you a quote where she said very directly. Dalia Mogahed was interviewed by Muslim Girl. And in that interview, this is what she says. She says, "It's such an honor to be talking to Muslim Girl, especially on Women's Day. I really admire the work that Muslim Girl does and the platform it provides young women to express themselves and have a voice. And I really commend you for everything you guys are doing. I wish I had something like this growing up." So that's really high praise that Dalia Mogahed has for Muslim Girl. And it's not just that statement. There's the entire social media record of her involvement with Muslim Girl. And it's all public. It's all public things that someone can go and see and think that, wow, Dalia Mogahed really likes Muslim Girl. Dalia Mogahed is a respected community leader. She's associated with these organizations that I'm constantly hearing about. She's the executive director of research at ISPU. She's also sitting on the board of numerous Muslim scholarly institutions, right? She's a board member on these institutions that are dedicated to Islamic research. They're dedicated to teaching Islam. She's a board member for them, right? But here she is very publicly promoting Muslim Girl. And what is Muslim Girl promoting? All kinds of wrong stuff. Okay? So this is how the kind of very progressive, meaning regressive agenda, the fahisha is injected and promoted within the Muslim community. Okay? Because people recognize different groups that want to influence the Muslim community and want to spread bad ideas and wrong values into the Muslim community. There are plenty of organizations out there, right? You have organizations like Muslims for Progressive Values, okay? Muslim Alliance for Gender, or for Muslim Alliance for Sexual and Gender Diversity. Okay? These are just outright calling for kufr. They're outright calling for, we need to accept same-sex behavior in Islam. We need to reform Islam to allow women to be leading the prayers and in all these masajid. We need to be making sure that the hijab is not seen as being religiously obligatory because that's body shaming. And so on and so forth. Like, we need to change when it comes to the Sharia. We need to change inheritance law so that men and women inherit equally in Islam. All of these kinds of reforms that they're pushing. You have groups that are already way out there, but the people who want to influence the Muslim community, the politicians, the centers of power, and we'll talk more about this in a second, They know that these groups they don't have any currency within the mainstream body of the Muslim community. No one cares about these extreme progressives because they don't have a platform in the masjid. They don't have a platform at ISNA. They don't have a platform at, the Islamic institutes. So there's not much bang for your buck if you pay someone like Irshad Manji, or you pay someone like Zuhdi Jasser, or I don't know if these are familiar terms to you. You promote someone like Tariq Fatah or Majid Nawaz. These kinds of figures, you can promote them and pay them and try to control them. But the average Muslim is not really going to pay attention because they're already a tarnished brand. Okay, they're already understood as being contrary to the Muslim community's interests. They're already seen as agents, right? So there's not much bang for your buck. But what if you can influence someone who does have mainstream acceptability within the Muslim community? What if you can influence them? What if you can get them on board to kind of promote and push these kinds of progressive items and have them call for reform, or a soft reform at least? Okay? And that's how you kind of ease the Muslim community step by step, khutuwat, just inch by inch, push them into accepting these kinds of ideas. Okay, that's a lot more bang for your buck, right? That's a lot more bang for your buck. So that's why some of these figures, some of these activists are so important. Okay, and that's why we have to be watching for that. We have to be monitoring that. And we have to publicly call it out, as I've done in this article when I call out Dalia Mogahed. Okay? And I don't think that, and I'm not claiming that she has some kind of private agreement with some kind of shady people trying to influence the Muslim community. That's not how it works, right? In many cases, it's not something overt like that. There are instead benefits, right? It's an institutional, structural thing where certain kinds of Muslims are promoted and certain kinds of Muslims are able to get access and get exposure, right? And this is how you're incentivized as a Muslim figure to start changing your views, to start promoting certain ideas and being quiet about other ideas. And I know this because I experienced it myself. And how is this happening, right? Okay. What does a Muslim figure have to gain by being quiet on the LGBT issue? What is there to be gained by that? I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious. If you talk about LGBT in the way that should be talked about, you're going to be banned. Right? Nowadays, you're just going to be outright banned. But for more than that, you're not going to have the same kind of access. You're not going to be, you're not going to have a kind of position at a university. You're not going to be able to have a successful academic career, right? You're not going to, in certain cases, get government funding or government endorsement. I mean, this is a big issue in the UK, more so than the US. But in the US, it's starting to become an issue too. Certain kinds of positions, public positions, you're not going to be promoted even in your place of work. If people find out, if your employer finds out that you're speaking negatively about LGBT, you're going to miss out on those kinds of promotions. You're not going to be able to get grants, university grants. You're not going to be able to get media grants. You're not going to get the media exposure aslan yani. You're not going to be invited to write for CNN. You're not going to be invited to appear on Vice. You're not going to be invited to speak for the New York Times or write an op-ed for the New York Times. Positive portrayals of you in the media also aren't going to be forthcoming. You're going to be portrayed as a terrorist. You're going to be portrayed as an extremist. That's going to have negative consequences for your livelihood. On and on and on. All of these negative consequences when you diverge from the progressive line, right? I just used the example of LGBT, but it's other things too. What about the issue of feminism? What about the issue of pluralism and perennialism? Okay, this idea that all religions are acceptable. If you start diverging and you start giving a more exclusivist message that is what Islam orthodoxy is about, what Islamic Aqidah is about, okay, then you're going to, there's a huge cost to that. There's a huge cost. You'll have to pay very dearly. So better to avoid those issues, better not to talk about them. Just focus on things that are going to soften people's hearts. Talk about rahmah, talk about, certain aspects of the seerah that jive with a progressive message, with a pluralist message. Maybe really emphasize racism. Make your entire platform be about Islamophobia. Okay, because that's something that now has currency in progressive circles and on the left. Islamophobia is now seen as another kind of bigotry, like anti-Semitism and like anti-black racism. So let's just make our entire platform be about fighting Islamophobia. All of these strategies, like don't avoid like any kind of citing any hadith or citing any ayah that will contradict these kinds of positions. This is what's happening, right? This is what's happening, and it's getting to the extent where now some of these figures are actually promoting things that are clearly contrary to Islam, or they're associating and affiliating with people that are clearly speaking in contradiction to Islam. So this is a big problem, because now it's the iman of the mainstream Muslim community that's at stake. And you have Muslims who will look up to these figures and will see them as role models, as religious role models. And that's how the iman of the entire community can be transformed. And it's not, and the stakes are very high, because if this generation were to be corrupted, if this generation of Muslims, for example, in the US were to be corrupted, the problem is that, unfortunately, I don't know why, in other countries, Muslims in other countries look to the American Muslim community for some reason. They look to the American Muslim community and try to see like, oh, what's going on in the West? What's going on in the US? How are Muslims over there acting and behaving, and what kind of views and ideas are they promoting? Okay, unfortunately. So what happens in the U.S. context has implications and ramifications for the rest of the world, for better or worse. And then it's not just this generation. What about our children? What about their children? If this generation has a corrupted understanding of Islam, that will affect the next generation, and that will affect the next generation, and so forth. So these are very, very high stakes. You can't have Muslim figures who are considered to be religious leaders, who are going and speaking at these mosques and at these very highly visible venues, also publicly promoting a online blog that is normalizing LGBT, that is promoting zina, promoting gender mixing, and taking off the hijab. This is a disaster. It's a major disaster. So this is the motivation for writing about Dalia Mogahed. And alhamdulillah, when I wrote it, most people, even people who normally criticize me, they said this is valuable to know this. Okay, this is valuable information, and they actually thanked me for it. And the thing is that it's not, it's something that everyone can do. It's not something that I only should be doing. You as well. Okay, you consider certain people to be leaders, right? You follow certain institutes. You follow certain organizations. You are paying money. Sometimes you're donating money. you're donating money to an organization, you're buying tickets, whatever, what are their people on their social media saying? The people who are on the board, who are teaching, who are speaking, what are they promoting? And we have to have a kind of scrutiny of this. We have to scrutinize what is being promoted publicly. We don't need to spy on people behind closed doors, and we don't need to call out people in the sense of doing takfir either and saying, oh, you're non-Muslim, you're a kafir. No, if you look at the article that I published, I just asked very simple questions. Okay, this is what public accountability means. If you have a public figure, they need to be publicly accountable, right? They need to be accountable for what they are doing publicly. If they claim to be representing the Muslim community, and they do, and they're benefiting from that position that they have financially and in every other way, then they have to be okay with public scrutiny. And so just go through their feed and go through their profiles. See what they're promoting, who they're promoting. Okay? And, that's all I did was ask questions. Why is Mogahed maintaining these close ties with Muslim Girl? Why is she promoting Muslim Girl to her followers? Is she okay with what Muslim Girl is supporting? Is she okay with what Muslim Girl is putting out there? These are all basic questions. And the thing is that some of the things that Muslim Girl is promoting, Dalia Mogahed's organization, ISPU, is also promoting. The ISPU is also promoting some of these things. And I describe that in the article. I go over that. Okay. ISPU is also promoting this idea that Muslims in America have to support LGBT. Muslims in America have to support transgender bills. Okay. If you look at ISPU's social media and you look at Dalia Mogahed's social media, they have a record of promoting transgender bills. What is a transgender bill? In the U.S., they're putting out the legislation that's saying that we need to respect the rights of transgender individuals. We have to have accommodations for them. We have to have bathrooms that accommodate the transgendered. We have to allow a transgendered woman to go into a men's restroom and vice versa, into their locker rooms, and so on and so forth. This is what the transgender bills are about. If someone claims to be a man or claims to be a woman, you have to respect their pronouns and to speak to them using their preferred pronouns. So all of this bizarre legislation that maybe if you're not in the West, you haven't even heard of these kinds of ideas, these extreme views. These are the kinds of things that are being promoted by Dalia Mogahed and her organization. So go to ISPU, go to their website, go see who is affiliated with them, and you can ask these questions, right? So it's more than just one individual. It's more than just one organization. I just focused on one in the article, but you have to be able to see broader connections. And so in the future, inshallah, others are working to bring more information and more scrutiny to the community on these kinds of issues and these connections, inshallah. But I'm encouraging you as well to be vigilant, to ask questions, to not just assume that, oh, such and such person has this position, is speaking at this masjid, then therefore they must be legitimate. No, you should do your homework as well. Okay, you should see what they're promoting and what kind of alliances they have. This is a responsibility that we all have. Okay, this is a responsibility that we all have. And if there's something that requires asking a question, you ask a question. You ask the question and you have to demand answers as well. That's what's so audacious. Like some of these people. So this is what happened. I wrote the article, and then Dalia Mogahed herself responded to the article with a Facebook post. And that Facebook post, I mean, it was a train wreck. It's an absolute train wreck. She avoided answering all questions. She even said that, look, if I don't have to justify my association with Muslim girl. I don't have to justify it. Right? That's what she commented on her post, responding to the article. Like, isn't that audacious? Isn't that brazen? You're affiliating and openly praising Muslim girl that is also has all this garbage on it, and then you don't even want to be asked or questioned why? You don't even want to be scrutinized for that? That's bizarre. Like, that's corrupt. That's corrupt to think that you're immune from criticism. And that's what she said in her response. She said that Daniel wrote all this. She called me a fasiq, which means, a sinful, evil person. And she called me a bunch of other names, but that's neither here nor there. But one of the things that she said substantively is that, well, Daniel didn't privately consult me before publishing this article. So it's illegitimate that he did that. She says, against Islamic etiquette. It's against Islamic etiquette to criticize someone without privately, having a chat with them. Where is this coming from? I've never heard of such an Islamic etiquette before. Okay? She's a public figure doing public things, writing publicly. She's appeared on, mainstream news as a pundit, as a commentator. She's interviewed. She has articles appearing in mainstream news. She has thousands of social media followers. So no one can criticize her without first privately having a chat with her. I don't know her. I've never talked to her. It's not like I have her phone number on speed dial. I'm just going, oh, hey, what's up, Dalia? I had some questions. No. If you're a public figure and you claim to be representing Muslims and you're benefiting from that position, then you have to be open to accountability. What about transparency? Isn't this a value that people are always promoting? It's a good value. Yeah, you should be transparent. Who are you involved with? Who is funding you? What are your affiliations? What do you stand to benefit from the things that you're promoting? This is what transparency means. This is what transparency means. If you're open and transparent, then you should be open to scrutiny. You should be open to critique and criticism. And then people can decide is the criticism and the scrutiny justified or not. People could say that, oh, Daniel, this is completely illegitimate. How dare you? Like, the points that you're bringing up make no sense. You have bungled it up, and this is all garbage. People can say that. People can criticize me and scrutinize me. People are constantly doing that. People are constantly attacking me. And most of their attacks on certain places are completely bogus and illegitimate. Right? But if someone does criticize me on a legitimate basis, I respond to that. And I like to respond to critique and criticism. That's what it means to be open and to have a discussion with people and try to learn and improve and teach others, learn yourself. But that's not what apparently Dalia Mogahed thinks is appropriate, because I didn't privately message her or talk to her. Then how dare I write this article criticizing her? The other thing is that it's not like her support of Muslim girl was just a one-time thing. It's not like she just had one post saying, oh, Muslim girl is great. She has a long history going back years of engaging with them, of appearing on their website, okay, of them promoting her and her promoting them. So it's not just like some one-off. So the question I asked is that, well, if you want private consultation, if that's so important, if that would have made a difference for Dalia Mogahed, the question that comes to my mind is, why haven't others brought this up? Why haven't others in Dalia Mogahed's circle of scholars and du'at that she has? Because, like I said, she's sitting on these different boards. And she is considered a leader and is often on the same panel or at the same conference or the same convention with scholars. Okay, who they can see what she's into. They can see what she's promoting. Otherwise, why would they invite her to sit on the same panel as they are on? Or why would they invite her to be on the same board as a board of trustees or board of scholars or advisory board? Why would they do that without doing a background check on what she's promoting and who she's affiliated with? So were those scholars, did they not do their homework? Were they just not aware? Or were they aware and they advised her and then she ignored their advice? Or were they aware but they stayed silent and they didn't tell her anything? Like, which option? Each option is worse than the other. But no, it's my responsibility, Daniel Hayraju, who has to go and advise Dalia Mogahed privately. Oh, sister, you know that Muslim girl is kind of pushing some stuff that's really bad? And then she's going to say, oh, subhanAllah, I didn't realize that. Okay, maybe that would happen. Okay, but she doesn't have to answer to me. I'm nobody. I'm just a guy, as I've said before. What she can do, she can answer the questions that I asked, that others are asking her. And that was the good thing about her response on Facebook, that all the comments, 90% of them were against her. Like, you are just avoiding the issue. You're not addressing the questions. You're deflecting the criticism. Just be honest. Tell us, like, why do you have this kind of affiliation? And all she said was, well, I don't have to justify that. So this is something that is quite disturbing, and that shows the need for this kind of public scrutiny. That shows the need, because if someone isn't publicly calling it out, and that's the thing, that a lot of people aren't aware. Like, some of the comments on the article and on social media were like, wow, I had no idea. I thought Dalia Mogahed was, just doing great. She was doing great for the community, and I always supported her. I had no idea that she was affiliated and she's promoting this kind of garbage and this kind of filth. And now I have serious reservations and questions and doubts about who is this person and what is their real agenda. See, when it comes to a public figure who has this kind of public influence on the community, it's not just husn dhann, in the sense that, oh, we just assume the best and then we close our eyes and we don't really say anything or do anything or talk about it or criticize. That's not legitimate. Husn dhann, thinking the best of someone, that can lead to a high level of harm. Right? If for example, you're a father and you have a daughter and a man comes and says, I want to marry your daughter, you can't just say, oh, I have husn dhann, here's my daughter, I accept, get married. I have husn dhann, I'm not going to scrutinize you. I'm not going to look into you. I'm not going to ask people around about you. Right? No, you have a responsibility. There's a lot at stake. You have to do your due diligence. You have to do your homework. You have to ask the tough questions. You have to hold the person accountable, and you have to expect transparency from that person. And the only person that's affected in that is your daughter, and then maybe, the family is affected. So what about someone who is going to affect the entire community? How much more scrutiny is justified and necessary in that case? How much more transparency is required in that case? You need to have public accountability. And the thing is that I have a lot of experience talking with different figures who are at the level of Dalia Mogahed or even more prominent than her. And I'm not going to name drop, but I'm just going to tell you like my experience with private consultation. I have privately consulted with people and told them that this is not right. You're actually spreading deviance, you're causing harm. And their response was, well, Daniel, you just don't know what you're talking about. Or, yeah, well, there's this issue and this issue. And they try to like weasel out of it. And then what I realize is that public scrutiny actually does get a response. So then when you actually write something publicly and you criticize something publicly, then their tune changes. Then their attitude changes. Okay? Then they have to respond. They only have two choices. They can either respond, and maybe they're going to correct their ways and they're going to amend for the wrong things that they've done in the past, which is great. That's what we want. That's what I pray. I pray that Sister Dalia is going to change her ways. She's going to make amends for all of the damage that's been done with these associations and promotions that she's made in the past. That's what my hope is, and we should all pray for that. But the person can either respond publicly and change their ways, or they can ignore it, and that sometimes is even more damning. That's something that's even more problematic, and people notice that. People notice that, oh, you didn't address the issue. You didn't address the charge against you. So that's why it's necessary sometimes to have a public discussion about these kinds of what these figures are involved with, what they're promoting, who they're promoting, what they're affiliated with, etc. Yeah, so Amir says one of the responses to silence people is to say, oh, you're not a scholar. You're not a scholar. And this is only really stupid people will bring this kind of objection up. Why? Like this kind of scholar card. I mean, I can dedicate a whole episode to it. But scholars are important, of course. Ulama are important. Have I ever disrespected the idea of scholarship? No. And if I have, may Allah forgive me, because that's a mistake. Have I ever claimed that I'm a scholar? No, never. I've never claimed that I'm a scholar. But is it only scholars that can say that it is wrong to promote a website that is publishing something normalizing zina? Are only scholars allowed to make a statement like that? Are only scholars allowed to say that we don't want to support a person who is affiliated with a website or a person that is pushing for LGBT, that's promoting fahisha? Can only a scholar say that? If so, where in Islam is that requirement? Okay? That only scholars can do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar. Only scholars can enjoin the good and forbid the evil. Where? Who has said that ever? I'm not, when I'm writing and speaking publicly, I'm not doing some kind of ijtihad in the sense that I'm trying to push something like a fatwa on an issue. I'm not trying to be a mufti and trying to promote my personal ijtihad on an issue. No, the only thing that I'm calling out are things that are known by necessity, that all Muslims know. Do you have to be a scholar to say that same-sex behavior is wrong? Do you have to be a scholar for that? Do you have to be a scholar to say that zina is wrong? Do you have to be a scholar to say that the Sharia is good, that we love the Sharia? Do you have to be a scholar to do that, to say that? Do you have to be a scholar to say that kufr is bad? Do you have to be a scholar to say that going to a religious service and praising the religious service of Christians is bad, is wrong? Do you have to be a scholar for that? Ajib, yeah. It's so bizarre to me that someone can be so stupid to think that. But think, what are they trying to do? They're trying to silence, okay, the Muslim community. The ummah is not corrupted. The ummah knows that these things are wrong. And they're rising up to say that this is wrong. We don't accept this. They're doing the amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar. They're calling out bad. They're enjoining good. And then you have certain, social media figures who claim to be scholars themselves, who are saying, no, shut up. You're not a scholar. Shut up. Know your place. Stay in your lane. How dare you? Yeah, so this is quite insidious. This is quite scary that you have people like this. And they think that, I don't know if they actually genuinely think that they're doing good or what, but they're clearly confused. At the least, they're confused. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So in Surah Yasin, so in two places in the Quran, it's mentioned that someone came from the outskirts of the city to warn people that you need to follow the messengers. Right? These were strangers who came from outside. They weren't scholars. They weren't characterized as ulama. They're just people who are enjoining good and forbidding evil. But we've lost that sense that someone can enjoin good and forbid evil and not be a scholar. Again, this is ignorance, mixing things up, not knowing the hudud, the lines. Okay, this is from lack of knowledge. This is ignorance. That's confusing people, and they're confusing people. Inshallah, next week we will have another episode, and I'm planning to have a special guest, inshallah, which we will announce. So please follow on Facebook, on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube. Share this video if you liked it. Share it. Subscribe. Also follow MuslimSkeptic.com. If you're interested in taking courses on these kinds of issues, on modernism, liberalism, and so forth, subscribe to and enroll my learning academy, alesna.org. alesna.org. You can find a link on my social media as well. And you can subscribe or enroll and take full courses on these issues so you get more systematic knowledge and ability to critique these ideas, and inshallah gain a better appreciation for Islam and the wisdom of the Sharia and the Islam as a whole. So barakallahu feekum. Inshallah, I will talk to you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.